How was your day today?
Good. I had a whole bunch of clients.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's kind of we were talking earlier about it being kind of like a nice overcast today, like those rainy days where you just want to sit up next to a window and read a book, drink a coffee. So,
Yep.
Oh, man, I wish I could have, but I'm stuck at work. How about you, Dom? You doing all right?
Day off today.
Day off?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. There you go. Well, you could have been up against the window drinking some coffee, man, but you skipped out on that, didn't you?
Yeah.
So I appreciate it, Casey, for you coming and sitting down with me to discuss you and your work.
Yeah, of course.
I've had on, I sent you a podcast today, Nora's episode. She had lost her husband at a very young age, and she came on the show to discuss what she was going through, but also like her grieving processes and how she went about it, but also some help for others to be able to approach a person who's grieving. You know what I mean? Because you don't really know what to do or say to somebody. That's my biggest thing. It's like, when I've been to plenty of funerals, I've dealt with deaths in the family, and it's just, what do you tell somebody, you know what I mean, who lost a loved one, who's going through something like that? You kind of just, give them a hug, tell them I'm there for you, whatever you need, and then you just kind of wait. But there's like debate on whether or not that's good. It's like, should you push more to involve yourself and help that individual or give them their space? So there's just so many ways to navigate and to approach people. And I'm sure it varies based, or case by case, with individuals, they probably go about it different ways. Some may want that, some may want their space, but, I'm hoping to know more about you. If you could give us kind of your backstory and leading up to kind of, why you got into the field that you got into.
Yeah. So I would have never guessed that I would be a grief and trauma specialist. But it's something you have to go through to kind of fully understand.
Yeah.
So about 8 years ago, I went through 8 major losses in 6 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And with that, just went on a downhill spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not really want to live. I had all of this, piled up grief and didn't really know what to do with it. Moved to Kansas City. I was living in Colorado, which was like the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Moved to Kansas City, which I later realized was a loss. And then I found a therapist who does what I do, and she started teaching me the grief recovery method, which is what I teach. And through that, started to realize it wasn't just these 8 losses. It was 2-3 decades of losses built up. All of this emotional pain that I didn't know what to do with,
Right.
just started to stack up. We use this analogy. I'm the queen of analogies. They're all really cheesy and stupid. But like you have this backpack, and as a little kid, you start to put rocks in it, and that's your emotional baggage. And as you get older and older, the rocks get bigger, they get heavier, and you just get used to having that backpack on. And then one day you're walking around and can't figure out why you're dragging on the floor, can barely walk.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got decades of all of this pain built up. So yeah, started to find that out and started to heal my own heart. And with that, realized, okay, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Okay. The 8 deaths in a span of 6 months.
So it wasn't 8 deaths; it was 8 losses.
Okay.
There was death in there.
Okay.
3 of those were deaths, but some of those, grief is anything you want to be different, more, or better. Any hopes, dreams, or expectations that you may have.
Yeah, I read that on your website. It's not only losses, but it's anything that has affected you in a negative way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
So a lot of people are, what is this feeling? It might be depression, anxiety, which those are absolutely valid.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times those things come from built up grief.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So could you go into detail, if you want, of
for sure.
what you went through, your grieving processes and kind of what happened?
Yeah. So one of those losses was, living in Colorado. I had an internship there, and this internship, they had kind of made it seem like you go through this internship and all of this great stuff is going to happen to you, and it sets you up for success. And after the internship happened, I went through one of the loneliest seasons, which was the opposite of, what we'd been told.
Mm-hmm.
I then found out that I had endometriosis, which, if you don't know what that is, it affects your reproductive health. And so your chances of having healthy, safe pregnancies plummets. It is manageable, but it's not fun. And I had doctors for about a decade tell me, you're fine, just take ibuprofen. It's not a big deal. Yeah. It usually takes a decade for doctors to be able to diagnose that.
Really?
Yeah, because they just don't look into it. There's not a lot of ways to test it for it either. And so you have to go in by surgery to actually get it diagnosed most of the time. So doctors, usually just say, take a pill, take some ibuprofen, you'll be fine.
Yeah. And that's a hard one because, especially if a woman wants to have a child, it's like, that's devastating news to be able to, to be informed that that's going on. Yeah. So yeah. I could see how that could be definitely put you through that grieving, stage for sure.
Yeah. And that was just one of them. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I saw your cats, so I assume that you're a pet lover.
I love cats.
And I had this dog, her name was Ruby, and I had her for about 13 years. I picked her out, I named her, I trained her. That was like my best friend. That was my buddy. And she was getting old, and, I kind of assumed like, oh, when she passes, like, I'll be okay. She had a good life. And, kind of the way that I found out she died was not great. And when you're going through loss and going through hard stuff, your pet is, usually the one you want there for comfort.
Yeah.
So I went through pet loss, which is also something I specialize in. Mm-hmm. Kind of a side note, but pet loss is one of those that people don't really talk about. It's either really hard or people are like, you're crazy. It's just a dog, know? And I thought that too at first, like, oh, it's just a dog. I'll be okay. Mm-hmm. And that one was a really hard loss.
Oh, for sure. I lost my German Shepherd last year, my Beagle last year, because we got them around the same time. They're around the same age. My German Shepherd was 11 and my Beagle was 10. And then I lost my cat, the one that you've seen on my stories. I lost him, when was that? I want to say 3 years ago. I want to say. So yeah, I cried for days, especially with my cat. I love my dog, but it was kind of like a buildup, like we knew it was coming. He had already had 2 ACLs. He, slowly was just decaying in health, using the restroom on himself and just not wanting to get up and just not being himself. And that was hard to see too. That was horrible. But with my cat, it's like it just happened suddenly. Like we found him out in the yard. He was crying. Legs weren't working. Rushed him to the emergency room. They had to sedate him because they said he was in so much pain. And by then, when they gave him back to me, he was already eyes glazed and pretty much not there. And they told us that, he's going to have to be put down. So, yeah, I totally get that. And those are the first animals that I had ever gotten. I've had, like I said, they were that old, so I've had them for a while. And, that's a hard one, and definitely, like you said, that like people don't discuss. Because, I've heard that a lot too. A lot of people always tell me that, well, it's a dog. Right, you get another one, you'll be okay. But, they're impactful to your life. You spend a lot of, time with them. Or I was just looking at my phone and, iPhones, they like to make these little memory things for you in your albums. So like all these photos popped up that's why I shared, his name was Dr. King, Dr. King Schultz from Django. Everyone always thinks it's Dr. Martin Luther King is Dr. King Schultz because my German Shepherd was Django. His name was Dr. King Schultz. And then our Beagle was supposed to be Broomhilda, but my daughter wanted to name her Bella. So
that's great. But
yeah, and so it popped up because it's been it was when he passed was on this date, and it's like, oh, you forget because you're living in the moment. And like you were horrible at memory. I'm the worst at it. But then when I had all these photos pop up, I was like, God damn, look at all these good times that we had together, and then it kind of hits you again. You're like, oh God, it's opening up that wound, So I totally understand. Yeah.
Well, and animals have a special gift of unconditional love.
Oh yeah.
Where if you're not a good human, you're not going to have friends. It doesn't matter if you're a good or bad human. You have
Especially
animals, they're going to love
dogs.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're so loyal, so kind, so sweet.
Yeah.
And you actually, you hit on a point too where you talked about, we'll just get another one, kind of replace the loss. That's something about in grief that I teach all of my clients is a lot of times we'll, just, replace the loss. Oh, you lost your pet. Let's get you a new one. There's a story that I have a client who had a horse. And her horse was her best friend. She's a teen and loved her horse every single day after school. She runs to go play with her horse. And then her horse starts to get sick and she's really, struggling and freaking out. And, okay, what am I going to do when this horse dies? The horse dies and the parents instantly, right after the horse dies, says, we'll get you another one. And she's like, that sounds good. In her soul is like, I can – okay, that sounds good, but it's not.
Yeah.
And she got a new horse very quickly and she started to feel like she was not being nice to the horse. And she's like, what's wrong with me? Then there's guilt there of, wait, why am I mad at this horse?
Right.
I'm being mean to this horse. Like the horse didn't do anything wrong, starts to make me feel guilty. So a lot of parents, will say that to their kids of, oh, we'll get you a new one. And while I don't think it's necessarily wrong to, get another animal, just realizing it's never going to replace them. They're not going to be the same. And pet loss is very real and very painful.
Do you think there should be some time in between though? Because it's almost like, and I know it's an apples to oranges, but it's almost like getting out of a relationship and immediately getting into another one to kind of fill that void. Do you think that's kind of a comparison for getting a new animal?
I think it really depends on the person.
Right.
For some people, it's I can't even look at another pet because that's way too painful.
Yeah. That's how I feel with a dog. That's why I haven't got another one yet. And they're just a huge responsibility. Yeah. And I think people just completely underestimate, especially young people a lot of the times. Like they'll get into a new relationship, they'll get an animal, and then they don't realize the work that goes behind it, and then it ends up in a shelter. It's like you really have to think hard because it's a life, and it requires work to be able to take care, to give it a good life, because you can't just leave it locked up in the house, or you got to walk and take them out, and especially a dog, they're very active. So. Yeah.
No, for sure. I think for some people, I will say, I think it's okay to get another pet. Just again, doing your emotional work first, making sure you're have processed or are processing. And just even having that mental note of this is not the same animal. It's not going to be the same animal. So I can't have the same expectations for it. And so, it can be an extra comfort, but it's not going to replace the loss. And actually, even with dating, I will kind of say that to the same thing where I will have clients who are getting divorced or are divorced, and they're like, how long? People say this magic number, like a year. And that's, with loss too. Oh, there's a year. And it's the year's BS.
I've heard
not
the same thing about like when
number.
when people lose a significant other, it's like, it's okay. You'll get remarried and you'll move on. But like, do you think that's right to tell somebody that? Like,
that's not a good. So I use this. It's like the head knowledge and then heart knowledge. Right. So head knowledge is, okay, maybe someday I will get remarried or things will be good, but that's not going to help heal my heart, and that's not what I need to hear right now. And I always tell people, like, I have a couple clients that are going through divorce and they're also navigating dating. And I always say, there is no rush. It's absolutely, please take your time and wait. They're not naturally going to make you feel better. And if you're going to navigate dating, you're an adult and can do what you want, and it's going to be harder. It's going to be a lot more mental, emotional effort. It's going to be a lot more hoops, a lot more fear. Once you've come off of that and have that much grief, it's, all of this piled up that you're managing and carrying with you as you are trying to date somebody else. So it is possible. And I just always warn, just, make sure that you're being careful with that. And the closer you are to that divorce or that death, comparison's going to be a lot more too. Because it's so fresh in your brain.
That's what I was thinking. You're comparing. Yeah.
You're automatically going to compare. And that's the same with pets too, of, Fluffy did this. Well, it's like the animal doesn't do what I want it to do.
Right.
Okay, well, it's a completely different animal. You're naturally going to want it to be what you're used to. Our brains don't like change. And so we're going to automatically compare. And sometimes it can kind of shoot us in the foot. Like, oh, well, I want them to do that. I liked when they do that and they don't do that. So it's like, this actually might be better or might be okay. But yeah, it can be okay and can be manageable, and just be careful moving forward with caution.
How should people navigate that? Like when you have people trying to come around you and comfort you when they're experiencing either a death with an animal or an individual or divorce, and they're saying it's going to be okay. There'll be another one after. Like, how is that individual supposed to accept that? How are they supposed to react to that? I mean, is that like, I'm sure it's different on an individual base, but like, what would be an advice for you for them receiving that information so they don't, become more upset or kind of, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like upset with either the situation or those individuals that are telling that. Cause I'm sure they're saying that to try to lift them up and just get them out of this dark place that they're in.
Very well-meaning.
Yeah. But at the same time, you're telling it to a person that's like, I just lost my pet, or I just lost my husband or wife, or whatever it is. Like, how the hell could you say that to me right now? You know what I mean? So how are they supposed to navigate that?
I use those statements as like, it's like your arm just got ripped off and I'm like, hey, here's a Band-Aid. You're good now, right?
Yeah.
Like, what? I usually tell people it's one of two things. This is actually where boundaries can come in, where somebody says something like that and you can set those emotional boundaries and do one of two things, which is, thank you for your words. I'm going to take that and throw that away and not listen to that and, care for my heart and know that's not actually the best advice, or it's an educational moment. So for me, it's, hey, I see that you really mean well in that, and maybe I will find somebody someday, but that's not where my heart's at. I'm not even looking. I'm not even considering that. Right now, I'm going to focus on my emotional pain, and I'm okay with that.
So you would recommend some either it's a good thing to be vocal to them and let them know how you're feeling, or some people it's okay for them to take that, but go, I'm going to throw that out, and there's no need to have to tell those people that. So,
yes.
So no, there isn't a right or a wrong way. Both of those are good.
Yeah. I always tell grievers, like, you have to take care of yourself first.
Gotcha.
So a lot of times people will come to you and, give you this advice, and it's like, I end up having to take care of you. So
right.
For, example, I had some health issues and was telling somebody about it, and they're like, oh, my cat has that too. Mm-hmm. And they start crying because their cat died of this thing. And I'm like, wait, now I'm taking care of you, and so it's, I don't have to take care of you, saying that sounds really hard. I'm sorry, and then focusing back on me. Right. It's like I was the queen of this, like, oh, I know how you feel. Somebody would tell me about something they were going through, and I was like, oh, I totally know how you feel. And then I would continue to talk about myself. And I didn't realize until this process, oh, wait, that was so well-meaning and I'm trying to connect, but I actually just made that about me.
I've heard
and
that before.
Yeah. So well-meaning, it's, I just want to connect and I want to be here for you and know, this is what I did, but this isn't about me. This is about you. And so taking this time to like ask questions and listening, those are the best ways to support somebody. Mm-hmm. How are you feeling right now? What do you miss most about them? Do you want to talk? Are you open for visitors? Like, people get to choose how they respond and you get to choose how you give. Mm. And so saying, hey, I'm going grocery shopping this week. What, some practical ways. I'm going grocery shopping this week. I'm going Tuesday at this time. If you want, send me a list of things that you want and I'll drop it off at this time. And so like you already giving that, hey, what's your Venmo? Instead of, hey, do you need money? A client just told me that today. Somebody asked how I was doing financially. Like, he was like, somebody asked me how I'm doing financially. Like, what am I supposed to say to that? Like, my mom just died last week. No, I don't, like, what do you say to that? Hey, if you're thinking about money, go ahead and give it, if you're thinking about any way to support a person, go ahead and do it.
Right. Instead of asking, because they're naturally going to say no, like, I'm good, instead just stick some money in an envelope, slide it underneath the door or something. I mean, like, if you want to give, like, you can give, you don't have to ask. But I probably been at fault of that too, asking, are you okay? Like, they're not okay.
Yeah.
So, but it's like we get into this weird state of mind where, because you're not dealing with death daily, at least not, where I live, and so when you do lose somebody, it may have been 3, 4, 10 years since the last one. You're you're like, oh shit, what do I do?
Yeah.
You know, so you really don't know. And it's not like, you know, we're studying up on this or, you know, trying to be, you know, and maybe we should, you know, maybe we should.
And that's why I do what I do now is I love educating. I love teaching people because grief is, every one of us is going to experience grief. And
I
so,
love your videos that you put up on your Instagram.
So
I think those are really good. And I know a lot of people might look at that and maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's changed, but as like like why put that out for free when you can charge for that? But I don't feel like, I feel like just, I'm not saying put everything out because what you offer in your practice at your office is going to be completely different. I mean, similar, but a lot more probably impactful in a very intimate setting than just you on a reel or a stories giving a quick 1 to 2 minute advice, you know. But I think it's good because it gets people curious. It's like, oh, I'm going through that right now. Oh, maybe I should go see her because like she could help me navigate this situation. So I think that's really helpful that you do that, you know, for people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love like the education piece. I think there's like 2 parts to healing. There's the education, but it's how do we actually heal from that?
The tools to obtain.
We have to open that up first is how do I even know that I am a griever? How do I even know that there is a problem here? You know, what's a little, you know, step towards that? Oh, okay. Casey might have some tips on this. If she has this tip, what other tips does she have?
Right.
And it opens that door too.
Right. And we kind of glanced over, I'm sorry, so quick. The first one. You said you had handled or you had went through what?
So are you talking about some more of the losses?
Yeah, the first one you had listed. You were talking about being or not
in
getting
an internship.
In an internship.
Oh, and moving.
Okay, and so I kind of want to hear about those because those are something most people would kind of just like they're sad about, but then kind of brush away. But how do you feel like that's impactful, like on somebody? I mean, because I could see if you didn't get into something that literally you've been working towards, I could see that really, you know, being very impactful. And I guess we'd use the term grieving from it because, damn, you had your whole heart and set on it. Like let's use, for instance, an athlete trying to get into the major leagues and it doesn't work out. You know, I mean, I see that all the time and they don't know what to do. They're like, this is all I've done is football or all I've done is baseball or, you know, whatever profession it is. And it's like, what do I do now? And we talk about all the ones that make it, but what about the ones that don't, you know? And they're kind of looked past and, you know, looked over.
Oh, yeah. That's the loss of hopes, dreams, and expectations. I have a lot of people. I have ballerinas. I have soccer players. I have gymnasts who that was their goal in life. And then all of a sudden it just stops. And that's like a loss of future. And so and that's like a loss of identity so many times too, because that's what I was going to do. And that's who I was.
Right.
So if that doesn't exist, then who am I? What do I do? And actually it's a loss of trust like in your body too. And so even, you know, I was talking about the endometriosis. For me, that was a loss of trust in my body of your body, you know, as a woman. Oh yeah, you're supposed to be able to have kids without, you know, whether you want them or not, should be easy. And it's a lot of times not. There's complications. And so, I think a lot of people take that on and what do I do now? Who am I? And I've built all this up. And so this whole future, it looks like there's nothing.
Right. No, I totally get how that feels because like I had been in a trade that I'm still in currently. It's kind of like my safety net because I've been doing it for so long, but I hate it. But it pays the bills, you know, and it gives me the freedom to do stuff like this or, you know, being with the kids and the hobbies that I have. But it's also, I'm not happy for 8 to 10 hours out of the day. So, but when I had found something that I enjoyed, when I got into project management, super stoked about it. I've always been one of those individuals that's like kind of OCD. I'm very good at communication. I'm very good at being on time and organized and documenting things and staying organized and being able to lead teams. And when I got into it for some years, I ended up getting just like, you know, just not at the right places that I should have been, you know, maybe I should have looked a little harder at other companies and stuff, but, you know, I'm appreciative of given the opportunity to be able to try and make it in that field, but it didn't work out. It wasn't what I thought. And maybe it's not the position itself. Like I said, maybe it may have been where I was but after I got out, after some years, I was kind of lost. Like, damn, I got to go back. You know, I got to go back to what I didn't like. And I really like this. I maybe didn't like the field. It was in construction. I didn't really like that field too much. And maybe that's not the entire field, but I was like, damn, I want to do something like this. And now I'm stuck to where, like, even to this day, I still feel lost. And this has been some years since I've been in it. And so, yeah, I could see like that's not something that just goes away like that. I'm still all the time wishing, like, man, you know, that could have been something that, you know, I could have made more money. I could have been a lot more happier, blah, blah, blah. But now it's like, and I think about it, I'm like, oh man, am I carrying a lot of weight? Just like, you're thinking about this years later, man, you know? And is that, am I not conscious to how much weight I'm putting on my shoulders? And, you know, I wonder how that'd feel if it was off, you know, stuff like that.
Well, a lot of people, that's what holds them back is that, oh, I wanted it to be like this. It should have been like this. Like, they get stuck back here. Again, you put that heavy rock in your backpack and you're walking around and it's hard for you to move forward because you're stuck back here. And so, like, process that and work through the pain that has all caused you, so that you're able to move forward and look forward. Yeah.
And then it's like affected my mood, you know, like where sometimes maybe you'll snap when you normally don't. And then, yeah, it can affect people around you because you're not happy. That's like the biggest one. I think that's the biggest one that I think about the most, just because of my own personal experiences and just this whole journey I've been on to be a better person, you know, to myself and the people around me. But it's hard, and you don't realize it sometimes when you get so used to the motions of life, or you're dealing with the motions of life, the ups and downs, the whatever it is. And you kind of can sometimes not see what you're doing. And then the blinders come up and you're like, oh man, why am I being like this right now? Oh, because I'm dealing with this, and this. But how many people really go back and reflect? A lot of people don't look in the mirror. They're like, oh, that's Bob, the asshole, you know, and maybe Bob's not an asshole. Maybe Bob's just going through a lot of things that are making him like that, you know, and that is his fault for not realizing it and not dealing with it. But then again, like, how many people do we know like that? We know a lot. And I just wish we could make people like that better, you know, and even just people that aren't to that level, that are just kind of like, you know, oh, this, you know, dealing with our Mondays aren't her best days, or, you know, well, whatever it may be, like, we could fix that.
Well, in our brains, we naturally want to blame ourselves completely. And that's where you get to major depression.
Right.
And people don't know how to lift that pain off, or they completely blame somebody else, which then you're still somehow the victim of, well, they did this to me, you know, and it's like, hey, let's, either way, even if it was them, let's let go of that pain. If it was myself, hey, let's let go of that pain and process that. So I'm not pissed off all the time. So I'm not being mean. So I'm not, you know, hating my life and depressed. Like,
kind of that victim mentality. Like, it's not really going to get you forward. It's going to keep you stuck. Yeah. And that's just, it's hard. And, you know, but that's why I'm glad you're here today, because you're going to be able to help us out a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And especially for the other one as well. Going what you went through, I'm sure that's a huge thing, like I said, for women, and I guess for men too. The men that are with those women, that's got to impact them a lot as well. We forget about that too, because they may have really wanted kids, and now you're stuck in the situation to where you're like, I really love this woman. You know, I'm sure that splits people up, you know, and it's so sad because it's not her fault. You know, it's not her fault at all. But then again, it's like, is he messed up because he only has one life as well, you know? And I know that sounds super selfish. It's like, well, they love each other, but he's always wanted kids, you know? And then like, so what do you, it's kind of touchy to talk about, but we have to talk about these things.
Well, and I find men minimize way more than women because, oh, I didn't carry the kid, or, you know, I only knew for a little bit, or it didn't impact me as much. And they shove it down and push it down and say, oh, it's not affecting me as much, or I don't feel like I'm allowed to talk about it because I feel like it will upset my wife or partner, or, you know, I don't know if I'm allowed to speak up about this. Cause you know, it's a lot harder on my wife, where it's like, it can be just as hard, if not harder, on men. And so giving men the platform to be able to say like, hey, this, you know, like you said, like this does suck. And how do I move through this? And when parents have had child loss, and this is, you know, miscarriage or, you know, infertility, but also children that have, you know, been alive for years, divorce rate is insanely high because men and women in general just process things very differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you add that grief on top of that. And it's, why aren't you, you know, healing this way? Why aren't you healing this way? What's wrong with you? You look like you're totally fine. Why are you crying all of the time? We still have to live life. It's the blame game. And it's this constant like, hey, we need to, like, instead we need to move closer. And I don't understand what you're going through because it's a totally different thing for you. I don't understand what you're going through, but we have to support each other instead of point fingers, be mad at the other person. One person may want to get closer. One person may shut down and say, hey, I need my space here. So how do we, even in our deep amounts of pain, move closer, and how do we figure this out? But a lot of people, when it comes to parent loss, they blame themselves, blame each other, shut down, don't work through it, don't want to deal with it. And so all of those issues, you know, any kind of child loss or, you know, even potential of child loss, it can really have an impact on couples. So it's something it's really important to work through.
And a lot of times I see too, just personal experiences, and well as I've talked to a lot of people, I think people feel comfortable enough to let out that ugly side of them with their significant other because that's their safe zone. But man, we forget sometimes that's another human being that at one point you didn't even know. Yeah. They had their own life and they gave they're giving their life to be with you, you know, and we got to respect that. And that's not me coming as a saint. Like I said, I've been through it as well. You know, I'm just as guilty, but you know, I think instead of falling deeper into that hole and feeling ashamed, because shame is the worst.
Shame and grief go hand in hand very much.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about, I've gone through stuff, and it's not like, there's so many more like monsters out there, like monsters. And I can be very hard on myself, and I'm sure a lot of others are as well. But yeah, that shame of like wanting to be a better person, a better father, a better husband, a better friend, a better son, all these things that we deal with. And like, you know, that brings you almost to, pretty much to tears. And some will go deeper in that hole of shame because it can be like, it can suck, you know, having that reality check. But man, I'm telling you that I think the best way and how I've gone about it is climbing the hell out of that hole and just facing it and going, Gabriel, you messed up, man. You know, there's nothing you can do about it. It's embarrassing, or, you know, it wasn't right, but you know, you learned from it. The point is to be a better person now. Yeah. You know what I mean? You know, we shouldn't be held, depending on the scenario, we shouldn't be held to our past, you know, and as if that's us 5 years later. You know, we change and we grow. Hopefully that's the goal, you know. And but yeah, I see that a lot. I see that a lot with people, you know, dealing with shame.
Relentlessly forgiving yourself, allowing that shame to just take it, throw it away, saying, I can't hold on to this. It's not doing me any good. It's not doing you any good. Right. I have to choose to let go of this pain.
And I see sometimes too, it could just make you even worse. Like I said, you get deeper in that hole, you just get worse. Yeah. You know, but it's hard. I get it. You know, it's taken me a lot of years. I'm sure people who haven't seen me in 10 years still think I'm that individual 10 years ago, you know, but that's just not how it is. You know, some people may, but I'm hoping, especially nowadays with just all the technology we have and the YouTube and everything, you know, like the access to, I mean, you could literally look online and find motivational videos on how to make you a better person. And I think those things are great. You know, it's definitely a useful tool. You know, definitely discipline comes into the factor of everything, though. Like you can't just watch a motivational video and change your life. You know, you got to create the discipline and the routine to actually change. But yeah, I mean, we have all this stuff now. You just got to better utilize, you know, I mean, even your practice. I mean, think about what 40 years ago, maybe your practice probably didn't even exist, you know, like specifically targeting these fields, because being a therapist is one thing, but that's like saying I'm going to go to a doctor and they're just going to know everything about the body, the human body, or how to diagnose me. That we don't. We have like skin doctors and brain surgeons and just your regular, primary care physicians, like in specific fields. And now, we have in therapy, specialized therapists, and so that way they can get into the details of how to really help, someone, and stay on top of new ways of helping people heal. Yeah. So
yeah, that's good.
But and what were the other ones too?
So another one, and it's kind of goes back to what we were talking about, is I had this dream. I had my whole life just wanted to like serve other people, help other people, wanted to like, go live in an orphanage and go, play in dirt and eat bugs. Like, that was my, whole plan for the future. And I just, between a couple of different other health issues that I had realized that that future was probably not going to get to happen. And so what the heck do I do next? Where do I move? Where do I go from here? Another one was I had this friend named Josh. He was like a little brother to me. You think my hair's red. His hair was like red, like orange, like one of the sweetest, most spicy people I've ever met. We would just go talk to people, hang out with people, and he would just start speaking in different accents, and would just like go just be friends with the police officers. And he was just one of the most friendly, kind people. Like, we'd see somebody who's living on the streets, and he's like, here's a coat. And I'm like, it's like snowing and freezing. He was like, I'll be fine in, an hour. He won't be. And so very, very sweet person. And he just shared a lot of his mental health struggles with me. And him and I got closer and closer. And I had texted him and said like, hey, I'm going to come visit you soon. And he was like, I'm struggling with some mental health stuff. I'll see you soon. See you, maybe in a couple weeks or something. Well, then he hung himself.
Oh my God.
And that, there was so many parts in that too, where even just me navigating that for myself was really painful, because he didn't tell me the truth of what was really going. Like, he had told me he was suicidal, and I knew that, but and he was like, "Oh, I'll see you later." You have that expectation. Okay, I'll see you later. You're doing okay. You would tell me if you weren't okay, right? And he didn't, and that was hard. And with that, different people dealt with it very differently than I did too. So I had a lot of people who had a very strong faith in God and kind of leaned into that. And for me, it was, okay, well, I'm really struggling and mad at God. I'm trying to figure out the big why question, a lot of that pain there. And so I kind of felt very alone in that too. And then there's people who straight up said to me, like, I can't believe that, killing yourself is just so selfish, and how dare he, and, said this to me. And I'm like in the middle of it, and I'm like, how do I respond to this? What do I do? Like, and I actually didn't tell many people this, but through all of these losses, with this one, it actually, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's like a trend of, if someone kills himself, the amount of pain that it brings. Like, I've seen this in schools where like one person will kill themselves, and then another person. And I'm not blaming him by any means, but him killing himself, it brought up these feelings of, okay, if he can escape this pain, maybe I want to too.
Right.
But for me, he just put all of this pain, he didn't put it on, but everyone's feeling all of this pain because of him. I can't let anybody know. So I start, how do I make this look like an accident? And I'm like processing this, and all this emotional pain is, coming up, and I'm feeling, if I tell anybody, then it's going to cause pain to other people. And I don't want other people to feel the pain I'm feeling. And it's this like crazy circle that I'm going through. Very thankful that I didn't, that's when I found the grief recovery method, but a couple more losses before that too. I was dating this guy. We had been together for about 2 years off and on. We were long distance, and we thought, things were going really good. He's about to go into the military, and we're like, we already had plans to get married. He had a ring picked out, and we're like, okay, we'll do the wedding after, but we're already going to get married. He's going in. There's like certain rights that you get if you're married to somebody who's in the military versus just dating. And so, okay, let's go ahead and go get married, and then we'll have the wedding after. Well, it's 2 days before we're supposed to get married, and I had this deep hunch in me, and I asked to see his phone, and found out that he had been cheating on me most of our relationship. And honestly, even then, I wasn't like, it took me a while to even process that of like, okay, he says he wants to change, says he wants to be better. We're going to grow. We're going to get through this. And then he left, and all of a sudden I felt this like weight, like lifted, like release. And I was glad he was gone. And so there was like, kind of the shame and guilt of like, oh, he just left and is, trying to serve the country. And I told him I would write him, and I wrote him many letters, but I like couldn't send them because I was like, I can't go through with this. I don't want to be with him. And even, he had graduation. And I was like, I'm not going to be at your graduation. I don't want to do this. And this man, he was a support person for me, throughout all of these losses too. And so, losing him as a support person was really hard as well.
Yeah.
So there's this kid named Josh. He was like another I already talked about Josh. Kyle was like another little brother to me. And, Kyle was really good friends with my brother. And Kyle, our families were just like very close. So, they have mom, dad, brother, sister. And then my family is mom, dad, brother, sister. Kyle's on a run one day, and, his dad drops dead in front of him, has a heart attack, and dies. And Kyle's, I think, 13 years old, feels like maybe I should have been able to stop this. How did I allow this to happen? How could I, I wish I could have done something different or changed this. And he carries just this immense weight and grief. And people are telling him, you need to be the man of the house. Like, you need to be strong. You need to, do all these things and like take care of yourself, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, And so for him, he's, working through the weight of that and processing all of this emotional pain that's happening. And he, gets a bit older and starts to get into drugs and gets into some harder drugs. So, some, heroin, and even leads to meth, and, all the things mixed in between. Mm-hmm. And he was, fighting really hard to get away from that, and was in rehabs, and, was, I think, doing better for a while. And then one day he had a major relapse, and he overdosed, and his friends left him there. And so like everyone ditched the party and just left him there, and he was left unconscious. I don't remember how long, but it was a long time. Because they didn't want to get in trouble, which thankfully they're changing laws around that. Where there isn't like, hey, you need to report. You're not going to get in trouble. We're trying to save this guy's life.
Right, because he could have been saved.
Yeah. So, things could have looked different, but he was there for a long time.
I mean, hell, you could have just dialed 911, at least been like, hey, there's somebody. You know what I mean? Like, God, I mean, something, not just leave them.
Yeah.
And then you could have left if you wanted, but at least the paramedics were going to come.
Yeah. Yep. And so that was a really hard situation.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 24. He was, I think, in his teen years, maybe just getting out of his teen years.
Oh, okay. So he had been dealing with that for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think there was a period that he didn't get into it, but I think it just started to build. And that's what we're talking about. That backpack doesn't matter if that rock is in your backpack from a decade ago, it's going to stay there unless you get it out.
Right.
And so, then they get him to a hospital, and he's in a coma, and I don't remember how long it was for, but it was a while. And while this was really hard for me, it's really hard watching, his sister, who's one of my best friends, my brother, who hasn't been through a loss like this, and just all of the community that's impacting, and people just, trying to grapple with like, what is happening and what do we do here? And just, it's like a waiting game of, is he going to be okay? Is he not? So Kyle, eventually he does start to, wake up, and he's more coherent in things. But he was never the same. So he couldn't walk, couldn't talk, couldn't feed himself. He eventually
like in a vegetated state.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So it's called an anoxic brain injury. And so it's, he can, interact, but just the damage that was to the brain because he didn't have oxygen for so long. So, he eventually would, he learned how to write his name and he could interact some, but it was, and there were certain like, funny moments where you would talk about like his favorite taco place and he'd like light up, but he couldn't really interact or talk to you. Like,
Yeah.
And so that was really hard too. And just, to see somebody that and you're like, this kid is cool, but this is not Kyle anymore.
Yeah, it's not him anymore. Yeah.
And then actually 2 years later, this is, at this point wasn't part of this loss, but 2 years later, he ended up dying from dehydration. It was from nurse neglect.
Oh my God.
And so and so basically because there's such a big stigma around drug use, he was in a nursing home and I think they had put him on a new medicine and they were supposed to push extra fluids because it can dehydrate you and things. But then, they found him and they don't know how long he had been there. And
did anybody get in trouble for that?
I think there's a case out. I don't know the full details, but I think they were trying to investigate throughout that.
There's probably some type of small print on that contract or something like, because I'm not here to bash hospitals or anything, but they have ways to skirt around stuff so they don't get in trouble.
Yeah. Well, and it's so hard. It's also that grief of that in between of like, okay, nurses are amazing. And he did have some amazing nurses. And even his sister, Whitney, now actually after all this happened, she saw the way the nurses were with him.
Right.
She changed her career and decided to become a nurse.
To help.
So there's, to help and to, just learn and care for people in a better way. And there's also this, hey, there's this injustice. There's this massive grief. How do we make sure this doesn't happen again?
Right.
And so how do we process that? And so that was.
I try to tell people that all the time. And, like I said, I should probably take the advice as well. But like everybody wants to complain, I myself included, about police or politicians or other. It's like, well, if you guys are complaining about it, why don't we get some good people in there if you think everyone's bad, And I'm the first one to say it. I say it as well, but every person I talk to, like, especially when it comes to like politics or something, I'm like, hey, why don't you go and run? Oh, I don't want to do that, Well,
quit complaining then, make a difference.
But and it's like also too, like, if you're not going to do it, who do you think's left?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like we always talk about how egotistical and narcissistic and crazy some of these people are. It's like, well, that's all that's left. So, I mean, if we're going to, and like I said, I get it, like you have to think about pay and your salary and like if this is really your thing. I mean, because some of these fields like nursing or being a police officer or something, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's fucking tough. I mean, they're working those nurses 12 hours, 13, however long they're working. And people can say, well, they only do like 2 or 3 shifts or you go do that.
Yeah.
I've had a shift like that. It sucks, especially that, like I used to work 3 12s, 4 12s and that 4th 12. Oh my.
You're like not a human anymore.
Dead.
You're on steam.
Yeah. And I'm not dealing with, I'm dealing with protecting my own life because I'm running $1 million machinery and I could die if I'm in the machine and not paying attention.
Yeah.
But these people, nurses and cops and fire, they're dealing with human beings, and I would love for everything to go perfect. And I do think that we should still speak out on injustice or, neglect, from nurses and whatever it may be. But at the same time, we also need to come to the realization what we're putting them through, is that okay for the employee, the nurse or the police officer, the firefighter? Is there another way we can structure this to where they're not working these ridiculous hours?
Yeah.
Because I'm a big believer. I believe anything over 8 or 10 hours, it's just you're not even being productive or safe, honestly.
Yeah.
But
well, and that's part of the reason I want to do this is I love the education piece too, where it's, hey, let's teach the people who are in these high crisis situations. Yes, you have to keep going in that moment. And then whenever you are able to turn off, how do we actually process that? Otherwise, it just keeps getting stored and you keep putting stuff in your backpack and then you're stressed out, overwhelmed, burnt out, and it's how do we actually give you the help and support you need? Because we need police, we need nurses. We need people who are going to help us. And, people complain about certain parts of it, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, again, it's like, what are you doing to actually help them and facilitate that and give them a safe space to process and to heal and grow? And do you give them room for error too, if they are humans? And, instead of ripping them apart, yes, there is justice for things that have happened. And how do we give compassion, and how do we actually give things and tools that are really going to help them be able to do this in the long run and not be so burnt out?
And I think also as a community too, it's like, what can we do to alleviate their job? Instead of like, increasing crime or domestic disputes at home or unnecessary fighting out and like all the, or taking care of your health, so that way these doctor's office aren't so over, what word am I thinking of? Like overpopulate, like there's so many patients going at, like that's the reason they're having to work these crazy hours. I mean, because these people at the top, they're not going to make it to where, I would hope there's some good ethical hospitals or good police departments or fire departments that are thinking of the employee, but they're thinking money. I mean, it all comes down to money. Let's be realistic. And when it comes to an increase in patients, they're not going to go, well, let's get more nurses so that they're taking care. They're like, no, they're ramping up hours and giving more pay to bring people in. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we'll give you more money. It's like, but I think there would be I would hope there's smarter people out there that have a better way of going about that. I'm sure there's got to be something, but I also am a big believer it's on the people as well. Like I said, like we need to start, instead of putting all the responsibility on everybody else, we need to put that on ourselves. And really, like, we have one life, one body. We need to take care of ourselves, take care of our people around us. That way we don't put some of these people in those positions and then just go, well, that's their job. It's like, I get that. But let's also, So that's kind of how I look at it. But
that's good.
But then again, but again too, so you dealing with also your person that you were having a relationship with cheating on you as well. Mm-hmm. That's a huge one. I mean, I don't know anybody that hasn't been cheated on or cheated. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's and we kind of I feel like it used to be a big thing back in the day. Like, like it was big if you did that.
Yeah.
But I feel like the normalization on some of like these TV shows and like just movies, or even this whole like, I on the male side, it's like, oh yeah, you got them girls, how many girls you got, dog? Like, what's your roster looking like? Or girls like, oh, it's all right. He wasn't even taking care of you. You deserve better. Like it's so weird, and I'm not a saint. I'm not acting like as if, I don't have my own past, I get that. But like, how do we like that? I feel like that's such a devastating one. Death can be devastating too, but this is one that you have to live with and still see that individual living. Like they're still there. He or she is still there. And with Facebook and Instagram, it's even harder because now you got to go. And if you don't completely get away from that, like you have to watch that now and see it all the time.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just the loss of that person. It is the loss of trust and safety. Mm-hmm. It is the loss of this person who I really trusted broke that trust. Who else is, like, you start to question everything. At least for me, it's, this person saying this? Is this person doing this? What does this person think? And now every partner, it's, are you going to cheat?
Yeah.
Okay. Or I already assume they're going to cheat because it's happened to me so many times before. And so it's like, how do we process? Yeah, we have to process the pain from that so we're not walking into the next relationship bleeding on somebody that didn't cut you.
Yeah, and then you're already setting your relationship up to failure because now you're bringing that trauma over, and now you're barely met this individual and you're going through their phone, or you can't hang out with them and you can't do this. And it's like, you can't do that, man. Yeah. I mean, one, she or he is not him or her, that you were with. And also, two, it's like you're already going to scare people off doing that. And why do you want to do that to begin with? Like, you really want to have to monitor another individual like they're your child. Like, you shouldn't have to do that.
That's exhausting.
Yeah, it's exhausting. So why? But you have to reflect on yourself. And I get it. I mean, when you're scorned, I mean, it sucks. It really does suck. But you have to, you're going to have to put in the work to, get through that and be able to manage it and get over it. Because if not, I mean, just, everyone, you're going to be dealing with the same thing. And you may even push them to cheat. Not saying you intentionally did it, but, they're going to get sick of your shit at some point. And, although we'd love for people to just leave on their own foot, but a lot of the times that's not what happens. They end up they end up talking to another individual, because we have it's difficult to leave without having something in front of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From what I've seen a lot,
Yeah.
So you'll naturally end up cheating, and you get caught, and then they end up moving on, and you're just going to keep dealing with that. And it's just, it sucks.
And I see this too, where a lot of people will, because they've been cheated on, their partner, they're like, are you going to cheat on me? Do you love me? Are you going to cheat on me? Are you going to cheat on me? And eventually it's like, it breaks down that trust of like, I've not given you any reason to not trust me. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to go ahead and say that I cheated, then I might as well. It's like,
you almost spoke it into existence.
Yeah, you spoke it into existence of like, and there's okay to have normal, natural, healthy fear. And hey, I'm feeling a little bit insecure here. Can we process that?
Yeah.
How can we,
Sorry for the lawnmower in the background.
You're fine.
Someone decided to cut their grass at, what time is it, 7:30 at night?
Hey, right. that's Missouri.
Luckily, they won't hear it much on the mic, but sorry. What were you saying?
I'm trying to remember what I was saying.
No, but the cheating.
Oh, yeah. Just that it's okay to have like healthy conversation of, hey, there's some struggle here. There's some fear here. I need some reassurance. I think that's healthy. Mm-hmm. But if it's accusation and, instant already fear, and I've already assumed that you've cheated on me, so I might as well just, it's like, no, how do we build this together? Mm-hmm. How do we process this together?
Right. And also too, like just like you said, you're going to go through everything now, your whole entire relationship, and wonder what was a lie and what was the truth.
Yep.
And that can really mess up a person in the head.
And that's exactly what I was talking about, where it's either in our heads, we either do fully them, fully me. And that's what's cool about the grief recovery method that I teach. It very much teaches you how to split up both, where there are things where, no, I wasn't perfect in this relationship, but I did do the best I could. And I did do this and I did do all of this. Or, instead of, we call it like enshrinement or bedevilment. So enshrinement, they're the best person ever. They're wonderful. They're amazing. Or they're the worst. They're terrible. They're awful. And it's, hey, what did they do that was not okay? Actually, they were a really good partner in this, and this way. Let's not discredit that. Oh, I was not a good partner in this, and this way. And they weren't a good partner in these ways. And so how do we, separate those, pull those apart, and then kind of process through that? So it's not all just one clump. Like as humans, we have so many different parts to us. It's not just you're either all good or all bad. Yeah, you cheated. Why did you cheat? Not an excuse, but it's like, hey, you're not just one action in a whole person.
Right. That cheating built up over time. Yeah. And for sure, there's probably just some pieces of shit that person was with, and you may not be able to dissect it like that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times, like you said, there's usually, like we said, not saying it's an excuse for them to do it.
Yeah.
But there is things that led up to that. Could it have been, you weren't paying attention to them, or you weren't talking things out, or spending time with them, or all sorts of things that, especially me speaking from the male side, I see this a lot, and I hear this a lot. It's like, well, I work a job and she doesn't have to pay for shit, and she does, what else does she want? I don't know, maybe a human being to be there for her and talk with her and care for her and be friends with, that you guys first started out as, because that's what we lose in a relationship is that friendship. It's like, then it becomes boyfriend, girlfriend, then husband, wife. And then it's like, oh, well, that's all our identity is, just husband, wife, mom, and dad. It's like, well, with husband and wife that's a friendship, that's something that you two came together and decided that we're going to be together the rest of our lives. Let's figure out this friend, let's figure out how to connect, and I believe as friends is really the best, I think, the best way to look at it as. But
absolutely,
I'm not an expert, but and I've made enough errors. I guess I've made a lot of errors in my life, so I mean, I've kind of learned from that. But yeah, I've seen that, and it's just like, I don't know, man. I think that's so good that you hit on that, because I've seen so much to where people will play that blame game of, well, she was this or he was that. And it's even horrible when it's like when they have kids together, and it's just like complete bashing of the other individual. It's like, your kids are right there, and that's their dad.
Yeah.
Or that's their mom. And they're going to grow up and they're going to be confused as hell. And, and really, like you said, you should be breaking down as well. And I know it's hard. It's fucking, especially I'm sure in the moment, it's like, well, this just happened. I'm definitely not breaking down what I did, but, but I don't think there's a timeline to it. You're grieving. Okay. But I think you should reflect at some point, like you said, because it could give you clarity on what could we improve on the next relationship, or even for yourself as an individual, what can I improve? Which could be the key to, the next one, or, if you guys work it out, how to fix this, which, I mean, working it out is difficult too. I'm sure you've dealt with patients that are trying to get through that. I mean, I even heard a stat one time. It's like, which I have no idea how they even got this stat, but it's like 13% of relationships that deal with infidelity make it. You know what I mean? Which, like I said, I don't know how they got that, but that's really low, which I can tell, because that's a betrayal to. How do you come back from that? You know what I mean? How do you really work that out with the individual and really trust? Not only you can get over trusting them, and time heals for sure, but how do you look at that individual the same again, thinking about all the things they did with that person, and and then you're doing these things and you're like, oh, well, they were doing this with this person. It's like, how do you ever really reconnect that? Sometimes it's like, it's almost best to leave, because you guys are just going to make each other miserable for the rest of your life,
Well, I am under I believe everything is workoutable, and you have to do your work first. Right. You have to put your mask on before you put it on somebody else. You have to take care of yourself before you can fix it. I see so many people, and I'm not anti-couples therapy at all. And most people, like, when they come to me, I'll have couples, we've got these major issues. Great. I'm going to separate you. You guys are going to intensively work on yourself, because if you are pointing the finger at each other all the time, you're not looking at yourself. Let me fix myself. And like, all I can control is me. And so me trying to control you, understand you, fix you, change you, that's not going to do any good. When you're trying to do the same to me, great, fix yourself. Go fix yourself. Okay, well, I'm spending that time trying to fix you, like wanting you to fix yourself.
Right.
And so let's separate that. I'm going to fix myself. You fix yourself. We will come together. And the more healed that we are, we can walk together. And I use this analogy of like, when you're single, you're walking down a street. And when you're walking down the street, you have this big old sidewalk, and you can run, you can skip, you can jump, you can somersault, you can sit, you can do whatever you want. You have somebody that's like now walking with you. And none of us are going to walk the same pace. So somebody might say, oh, I'm going to sprint. Wait, why aren't you sprinting? You're sitting. What are you, like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
Wait, I just wanted to sit. Why are we sprinting? What's wrong with you? It's, hey, how do we stand up, hold hands, and walk together? Wait, but you're bumping, I can't just, walk randomly. I have to walk in a straight line now. I have to leave space for you. I have to leave room for you, so we can both walk down at the same time. And it's okay if you want to go a little bit ahead. I'm going to stay back a little bit. But, it's communicating of like, then in a little bit, we'll go at the same pace. And so everything is workoutable, but you're having to learn your own pace, being okay with your own pace, and choosing that other person. And is their pace okay too? And same with, cheating. I think it's that loss of trust where I think, again, you can work it out with anybody, because I'm going to have to deal with, let's say somebody cheats on me. I'm going to have to deal with either, he cheated on me. I'm going to have to deal with that now or later. So I have to deal with myself. If he decides that he wants to get better and say, hey, I'm not going to do that again, we're going to work through this. This is what happens. This is my ownership. I'm going to have to heal from it here or here. So if he's doing his work, there is possibility. And so I think a lot of times And I think there are some times where it's, hey, no, this is irreparable and they've cheated 27 times. I'm not doing this anymore.
Right.
This is killing me. This is killing our kids. This is not okay. This is not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times there is this like, oh, we just can't work it out. It's too hard, which it is hard, but it's going to be hard whether you do it with him or you do it by yourself.
Or length of time, how long did it go on for, how long did they leave for, stuff, all that stuff can affect you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Because it's not like.
And it's not one size fits all at all.
Yeah. It's not like they just cheated a one night stand. I mean, a lot of these things they build up over time, it starts with micro cheating and then turns into full on. So.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely, like you said, it definitely depends on the individual. But I'm glad you did say that the dealing with it, reflecting on yourself as well, because I think that's important, And even like you said, couples therapy. I've done couples therapy before, and I've done individual as well, and it's different, And I find that couples therapy, I'm not an individual that's done it for years, I've done it. I feel like quite a bit, I think 10, 11 sessions, which is a lot to me, but it's hard, you know what I mean? Because sometimes I see, and this isn't to knock couples therapy at all, I still recommend it, but you can find yourself almost fighting,
It usually makes things worse before it makes it better because it makes you look at everything that's there.
And then you get defensive.
Yep.
And then it's like, is he or she taking my side or her side?
Yeah. So, having a third person, there's a lot of humility that it takes to do that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times couples therapy, people will go in and they realize, there's 10 more problems that they didn't even realize. And it's, well, they're just siding with you. Maybe they're right. Maybe it is yours to own. And that's where that shame creeps in. Yeah. Hey, how do I say, okay, that might be on me. I need you to not punish me for it. I'm trying to work and get better. It's that defensiveness of like, well, I can't be wrong because then you're going to tell me I'm wrong. The therapist is going to tell me I'm wrong. I'm going to feel wrong. And then I'm going to have the shame instead of this radical sense of responsibility of, you know what, you're right. That is something I struggle with. And I'm going to try and do better. It's going to take a while, but I'm going to do my work and I'm going to get better.
And that's the thing, though. It takes work, I know a therapist personally that I've discussed that with. It's not, you can't just, actually it was Ann. It was Ann on her episode when I interviewed her. She's not just going to give you a magical pill at that therapy session and you're going to be cured. And yeah, she even does ketamine therapy to where it's definitely very helpful tool, but that doesn't magically heal you. You have to do the work as well. And that's not just at her office, that's outside also, where you're supposed to be implementing the advice that you all give your clients and give them these things to be able to use out there. The 23 hour, you're only with them for an hour, whatever, however long the time is, it's like you have to use in that time, to be able to set this up. And it takes repetitions. Yeah. It's not like you can just do this for a month and then, it's automatic. Like this shit may take years. Yeah. It may take a long time. But just the whole, I see it a lot. Like I said, I don't know anybody who hasn't dealt with it or done it. And it's just, it's something, a part of life, and it sucks. But, there's ways to move on and ways to move past. And then, sometimes, I don't know, I think about like, because I think it is good to work things out. And especially if you have families and, kids involved, and instead of just the natural reaction, which I totally get, is to leave, is it best to work it out? Do we just up and leave so soon? And I trust me, I know this is a hard topic to talk about because it's like, Gabriel, it's not like you guys are fighting. Like they full on cheated on, you know what I mean? Like that's horrible. Yeah. But I don't know. It's just, it's hard because, you get stuck. You're like, should I stay with this individual, work this out? What if there's a person out there that is my person, and that's gotta be a struggle. And I'm sure you dealt with that a lot, where that individual really wants to keep his or her family or his or her significant other, and they don't want to break that apart. But at the same time, they're like, how the hell am I supposed to live with this? You know,
Yeah.
this is like the backpack with the rocks on it. How do I really want to feel like this the rest of my life? But I feel like I'm going to let him or her down or the kids down or whatever. And then, you know, it's like, well, then I'm letting down my possible soulmate out there, and just so many different things. It's got to be so hard, you know, just to deal with. And so many people try to deal with on their own, which I get it may be due to either just lack of knowing that, you know, people like you, your practice exists, or money, or whatever it may be. But there's ways to navigate that, you know, as well. It's like, what stupid stuff are you spending money on that we can kind of pull back here and maybe allocate some funds towards bettering yourself? It's like kind of what people tell me when they're like, I don't have enough for a gym membership, or, you know, I don't have enough to eat healthy. And it's like, I get that. I said those stupid things at one point as well, but I also see a $2,000 iPhone in your hand, you know,
Yep.
Those are really nice shoes. That's a nice car. Like,
Oh yeah.
you know, there's a reason why my truck that I've had for 13 years is still out there, you know, because I don't want to go and have a $800 car payment, you know, where I can, or there's a reason I live in this smaller house. It's like, cause I'm not house poor. I can take off a month of work, or, you know, do things, you know, it's like, and I'm not loaded with money, you know, I'm still struggling like everybody else, but there's ways to be able to change stuff and to get help from people like you.
You choose your priorities.
Right. Exactly. So.
Okay, sorry, I gotta pee.
Oh, you're good. No, let's take a break. Okay, let's do that. Actually, I was getting ready to ask you, because we need to find you a lady. All right, so we're gonna have some questions for some.
I got some hot friends I can set you up
there
with.
you
I'm
go.
just saying.
And we have
that smile indicates you're interested.
And he's
so,
grieving. He's grieving. All right, so we need Dom. You need to open up a little bit, brother. I'm not saying you got to open up a whole bunch, because I know this is being shown to our 3 subscribers, but all right, we hot? We good? All right. All right, so we're back.
All right. So that kind of leads me to a question.
Mm-hmm.
You said soulmates.
Yeah.
So you believe in soulmates. Tell me about that.
Okay, how do I put this? I think that I feel like there's a person out there that you're able to fully connect with, like not only physically, but like really deeply emotionally, and like communication, like almost like we said, that friend, you know. And I know sometimes, especially if you meet that person and it's very fresh, like a new relationship, that can kind of mess with your head, because it's like, everything's going so great. And then that's why people get, you know, they move in together so soon and have kids so soon. And then it's like, then the 7-year test happens, and it's like, everything falls apart. Cause you know, that's kind of when you've been with this person for so long. You've been, you know, they become just, they're there like they always are, you know, and it's like the spark has been lost, you know, and it's, so I just feel like, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe with the soulmate, you're going to have to deal with the same thing, you know, because we all like to think there's that person out there that you can just deeply, deeply connect with, and that relationship's just going to flourish forever. But let's be realistic. That's probably not the case for a majority.
It's more just that I always am just so curious with that, because everybody has such different philosophies. I think for me, it's like we all, like I said, anything is workoutable. There's to me, there's no such thing as the right person.
Right.
I think there's very much very wrong people for you, but I think for anybody, you can make them the right person, or you can, you know, figure out together how to be the best, like you together become the best version of each other, you know, make each other better, and then become this like unit.
But can't that get you on a slippery slope? Because just from female friends that I have or that I know, and they kind of have that I can fix him mentality, you know?
Yes. So I think that's different, where it's a we, not an I'm like me versus you, where it's that, because absolutely it's I can fix him. Do not don't be with somebody for their potential, because they will let you down. And, you know, your expectations, that's 100% of people, no matter who you're with, no matter who you think they are, at some point, you're going to realize something about them that you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Okay, what do we do with this? But it is that like, hey, we have to figure this out together, because no matter, even the happiest of married couples are going to tell you, I've been with, 20 people in our 50 years of life. I haven't been with this one person. Like, we've changed and we've grown and we've had to work it out together. And so, I'm like, okay, if there is a soulmate, are they soulmates in every stage that they've changed? Or is it, I don't know. Those are just my questions.
So do you think sometimes a soulmate may just be a period of time, because we change, right? So like maybe the first 2 years was really good, and then you guys had kids, and then for a while it was very rough, but then somehow you can magically come back, not magically, with the work put into it, you can almost change it to where like, okay, well, this person was just like almost feeling like a roommate, but now we're really deeply connected, because you change and you grow even as a human being.
Yeah.
Like your thought processes on how you navigate life, or the decisions you make, and all, things you like, they change,
Yeah.
or even maybe the blinders come off and you're like, oh man, I've been neglecting that person, and now I need to do something, but.
So I think the thought of like a soulmate, to me, that like sets us up for failure, because, if you're my soulmate and then things start to not go well, then wait, were they not my soulmate? Did I choose the wrong person? Instead of,
right.
Hey, how do we make this work for us? Work together. I think you can say, it's soulmate is like, you're the person that I'm choosing, and I'm going to not make you into, but it's like, we are going to make each other into our soulmates, not as like changing, but it's like our relationship together, we can become the best versions for each other, like with ourselves, if that makes sense. Like, we can make our relationship really good through communication, through learning, growing, healing. Like, I think it's, it's that happily ever after mindset that actually can kind of screw us over, because that also, like, what happens if you marry somebody and then they die and then you get remarried? Wait, what? Were they both my soulmate? Was one my soulmate and the other one isn't?
Right.
And it's also, if you get married and you're unhappy, oh, well, it's because I missed my soulmate. Whereas most people who leave, one marriage because they're like, oh, there's somebody so much better, they have almost the same issues in the second marriage. Not the same issues. Of course, there's totally different, again, like cheating or abusive, like things like that. You're not necessarily going to have that in your second marriage. But a lot of people who have a lot of normal problems in their marriage, it's, well, I'm going to go find somebody else who's going to make me happy, or this thing's going to, it's going to be better here. And then so many people, it's still all like human stuff they're working through. It's just a different person with different stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, I don't think there's anything, wrong with believing in soulmates, but to me that makes me so hyper vigilant of like, what if I miss him? And what if they don't find me? And like my husband, for example, I fully believe that he was supposed to come into my life when he did, how he did, all of the things. And that man is going to piss me off sometimes. And I'm, what if, someday I'm like, oh, this sucks and we're not in a good place. I can't be like, oh, was I wrong about this? Maybe it's somebody else. It's nope. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to make it work. I'm going to figure out how I do better and I grow in this. And he's going to figure out how he does better and grows in this. And we're going to come together and figure it out together and become each other's soulmates. Maybe soulmates isn't even the right word. It's like, we're going to love each other well, put each other first, choose each other.
Do you think soulmates is more of like a fairy tale thing? Like that word you used, it's not really real. It just depends on the work that you put into it is what you're going to get out of your relationship.
I think that's probably what I think. I think there's some people who, if people want to believe in their soulmates and they're like, I found my person, this is amazing. I think there's nothing wrong with that, as long as we're not getting caught up in this like almost magic of, happily ever after. Oh, when it's not happily ever after, did I screw up? Or did something, did I not read this right? It's no, like I can choose my happily ever after. And that is working through the pain with each other to create our happily ever after.
Right. Yeah. A buddy of mine, his mom said one time when we were all having dinner, she was like, yeah, I don't understand why a woman would just leave to go find another man. He's like, for what? So you can have just new problems? She's like, I stay with my husband because I already know his problems. So I
Yep.
already kind of know how to navigate that, you know? And I'm not saying that, you know, like I said, case by case for sure.
Of course.
If
Yeah.
your husband's beating you or something like that,
Yes,
it's not a
please
problem
leave.
you should
Yeah.
you stick with, you know, or even cheating. Like I said, that can go either
Mhm.
stay and do the work or, you know, get out of there, you know, and,
Yeah.
and it, you know, it's depending on how you feel or how you want for your life. But
And how both of you respond in that.
exactly. But then sometimes it's so murky because it can be so bad at the beginning, but then you can see some flourish in the end, you know. But it's kind of that, do you want to take that chance of that flip of the coin, you know? Because
Yeah.
I can understand why do you want to waste 2-3 years out of your life going through hell just to hopefully there's a chance of some sort of peaceful relationship towards the back end. But yeah, you know, and even the whole philosophy of like, you know, instead of always seeking the grass or greener on the other side, you know, try to water your own. But, you know, it's easier said than done. You know, and we're all human beings, and it can. Relationships are just so weird because you can look at them from the outside and you can be like very judgmental of those individuals. But it's like, you know, like even with the stuff like you go through, like you said, it's up and down. They're going to do things you don't like, or you're going to go through your rough times and then it's going to be good. So it can really like kind of mind fuck you in a way. It's like, should I stay? Should I go? Like, I don't know what to do. And you're just back and forth all the time. And then with the phone, it's just even worse because, you know, you'll see girls or guys on there and like, it'll pique your interest. And then you're like trying to stay disciplined, or you know, just so many factors you're playing against. Or we have these, you know, celebrity influencers and they're telling you it's okay, you know, just go out there, do you, boo, you know, and it's like, what do I do here? You know, it's just, it's so hard, you know, without, and especially if you're not well grounded and, you know, it's just, and who really is? I mean, I feel like everybody makes mistakes, you know, it's just so hard.
Yeah. Well, and I think that like open communication and vulnerability with your partner of even, hey, this is something I'm struggling with,
right?
You know, and hopefully finding a good partner who doesn't get defensive and how dare you think about that or look at that, or that sounds like a really hard struggle. How can I help you through that? How do we process together how we get you through that?
If anybody's dealing with that, how do you know when is the right time to say it? I've tried. It's not working. Because I feel like everybody's stuck in that, like stories I've heard, you know, it's like, when do you really know when to throw in the towel? You know, because some people go too long. It affects your kids. It affects you. It affects your partner. When do you know when to call it quits? I mean, it's hard.
No, that's a really, really great question. And that's not something I have the answer to because it's so case by case. I think the only advice I would give, even with that scenario of, well, I stayed too long and it affected my kids and affected, you know, I think this is for me personally. I don't think this is for everyone, but for me, it's I would rather stay and fight and know I did everything that I could. And that's what's cool about what I do now, where it's I know I have the tools to, when things are hard and when I'm not sure about like what to do about certain things, it's like when I know that even if I am hurting myself and hurting my kids, or it is hurting my kids, I still have the tools to heal my heart. I have the tools to, okay, that really hurt, and I'm going to heal myself while this is happening. So I'm minimizing damage. I am, you know, I'm going to put up my shield. I'm going to put my armor so that as I'm going into battle, I'm feeling ready. I'm feeling prepared, you know, so I'm not getting as much casualties. And then I think with kids, I think that's a really hard one too. Protecting your children. I'm not a mother, so I cannot say that. And I think it's one of those just even wanting, if I could say, you know, giving people hope that like, as the parent, like you have to make the best decision for yourself and for your kids. And you are the only one who can make that decision, you know? And so there's no right or wrong. People are going to give you advice, but like you have to choose that. You are the one that is in charge of their life. You can teach them how to heal, and you can teach them how to work through that, you know, and things like that. And again, it's just so case by case that you can't say like, oh yeah, no, it's fine. Like,
there's no universal,
no
universal answer for everybody. And not only that, it's like, just because you leave doesn't mean your kids are just going to be magically okay. There's going to be another set of issues that you're going to have to deal with, that, their dad's not around anymore, or their mom's not around anymore, or whatever it may be, or holidays are different, or even coming home from school is different, or, dad or mom has a new boyfriend or girlfriend. It's just, so divorce, shooting straight to divorce isn't always the just right solution. Like, I agree with you as well. It's like, keep trying the best you do, the best you can, not only trying to fix your relationship, but yourself. I like how you're saying that as well, because that's a big thing. It's like, if you're not changing yourself, this isn't really going to work, as well as that individual is not going to change theirself either. It's not going to work. So,
And I think it's, it's so individual and so case by case. And, like, ultimately you're the one who has to live with that choice and live with that. And so I have a client who, she, her dad was decently abusive. Not so much physical, but pretty physical. But it was one of those that the way things were going to work out, if her mom did leave, it was going to leave them 50-50 custody. And she was like, I do not want to leave my kids alone with him. And so even moments like that, where she was like, I will not, my client, who's the daughter, was like, I was mad at my mom because why on earth would you not leave him? Like, why would you not leave me? Like, why would you not leave him? But the way, state works and things, she would have had to kidnap her kids,
or
and she would have left. She would have to leave the
themselves.
kids by themselves with him. And she was like, I will not do that. And so client had to process through, like, okay, yes, that sucked. And it was hard that there was abuse here. And she protected me at least more than she would have. So again, there's not, do we wish there wasn't abuse? Do we wish that guy would have gotten help and healed? Yeah. And, so my client had to say, okay, I have to let go of the pain that my mom caused and that my dad caused. I have to forgive my mom for choosing my dad and for not leaving, and also thank her for doing the best she could to protect me in a situation where she didn't know that she had any other options.
Yeah, because what would have happened if maybe it would have been worse when they were by themselves, or even I'm a big believer of keeping the nucleus of the family together, and not saying in a situation like that, but I admire the mother for at least trying, she did the best she could, it's like, I spoke about this on an interview one time about when they kind of got into a little more in depth on my life, on a podcast called Indelibly Marked. And, I'm very open. I'm not open about everything in my life, because some things involve certain people, I respect to them, and just, keeping some things,
Absolutely.
I like to be as transparent as I can, but, there's some things you got to keep to yourself. And I discussed my parents, it's like, they tried the best they could, was things perfect? No. Did I like some of the things? No. But, my kids are probably going to say the same thing when they grow up about me. They're going to be like, Dad, I didn't like this, this, and this, and I got to take it, and honestly, it's like, I want them to tell me. My kids know that now. It's like, tell me how Dad's being, because, I got to learn from this, because sometimes we don't see from the outside, we may be so mad at that moment, or just irritated, or whatever it is, or just blindly not paying attention, and you're just stuck in your head. And we need those, that communication key in everything. And we need that, so that way we're able to reflect and grow. But it's hard. It's hard to look in the mirror. But yeah, so it's like, who knows what the best decision is, but it's hard. It's a hard decision to make, for sure. But a lot of people are dealing with it, and I just hope, man, I don't know. So you want the best for everybody, and it's just because it's tearing people apart, and it sucks.
Well, and that's something I always tell people is staying, regardless of what you choose, staying or leaving, there's going to be regret either way. Yeah. The regret of staying and I'm hurting myself, I'm getting hurt. The regret of leaving of, am I making the right decision? Is this okay? Is it going to work out? And so you're going to have to make that decision. And I think people think, it's black and white. I'm going to know exactly. I'm going to feel good about it. I'm going to feel confident. Right. I know people who have been beat to hell and are still like, I don't know if I'm making the right decision. I love him so much. I know he can change. I know he's trying his best. There's so much of that, even in those situations where anyone else in the right mind would say, get out. For them, in their reality, it's so hard. Like, you're never going to feel 100% sure about getting out.
Or like what you said there, it's like, what if that person's changing? But then it's you that can't get over the fact that it happened.
Yeah.
So how, like,
yeah,
it's like, is that wrong for you to leave that individual, even though they learned from it? Or is a cheater always a cheater? You know, like, I sometimes don't feel like that's true. I think people make mistakes and people learn and grow. But then sometimes I go back and forth. I'm like, well, maybe they're just regretful because they got caught, like, because how many times didn't they get caught? There's so many different factors at play, but I think it's almost like, well, what's the point in going down that road of trying to break apart all of that in your mind when you're never going to know? Because either they're probably never going to tell you. A lot of people go to the grave with it. And I don't know. It's definitely, like I said, with that individual that you're talking about, it's like, get out. Yeah. But what if they're trying to change? And should you give them a chance? But should that individual have to deal with the rest of their life having to feel that pain inside of them? Because I'm a big believer when it comes to like grief, and correct me if I'm wrong, please. I don't fully think you just get over it in your life. I think that you find tools and you find ways to help you heal and be able to move on. But when you lose somebody, or you deal with cheating, or you deal with the loss of whatever it may be, or whatever trauma in your life, I think it gets easier as time goes by, as long as you're doing the work to get better. But I still feel at 60, you're probably going to think back on something that hurt you, but it's not going to be as painful as it was the year it happened,
So I will actually push back a little bit on that, if that's okay.
No, for sure.
Because I actually have a couple clients that are in their 60s and 70s and who have never dealt with that and are just now starting to feel true healing, to feel better about things. So I'm a grief recovery specialist. The word recovery means to feel better. And so giving people tips, tricks, and tools to actually heal from those things. And I'll use an analogy. It's a ridiculous analogy, but my husband and I moved into this house, and I'm a short person, and this house is short, but I, normally I can walk up and down. It's totally fine. I walk up these stairs. I start to kind of run up the stairs, and I kind of, hop up, and I smacked the back of my head, and instantly I hit it, and I was like, okay, that's good concussion right there. Like, and so there was a while that I did not even want to go down to the basement, because I was like, okay, like if I go down, then I'm going to smack it. I'm going to have to, I like freaked out for a while. And then I started to process that. And I was like, no, like now I go up and down the stairs all the time, but every single time I go down, I think, oh, okay, I'm going to I don't even consciously do it anymore. Hey, I'm going to duck, but it's not this fear every time. And so I think there are definitely ways to process, to heal, to say like, I'm like not going to let it hurt me anymore. That's a lot of the work that I do, is teaching people how to heal their hearts so that they're not in their 70s, 80s and still waking up with those same regrets. And I think there is part that we're always going to remember. It's when somebody passes, when somebody dies, like we will always remember that person. I can't give a magic pill that they're just going to be, magically okay.
And that's what I mean. That it'll always kind of be there, but it won't be you won't hurt as much as you did when it that time period.
Well, and I had heard you say a couple times something about like time heals, or with time. And so that's actually one of the biggest myths with grief, is that time heals all wounds. Because if you're driving a car and all of a sudden it just like breaks down and you leave it there for, a year, a couple years, when you come back, when is it going to be healed?
Right.
It's not,
Well, I say that with the work put into it, though.
Got it. Yeah.
Not just like you can plainly go on and not do anything at all and just expect it time to magically heal. No, not at all. Not at all.
Well, and please hear, that was not a correction at all. That was just an encouragement. Because that is what our culture, it's what we were talking about, I think, at the beginning of the podcast, where it's like, we just think, we don't know what to do with grief. And so we have these different things that we've been told is, oh, time heals, time will make it better, which time can help, but it doesn't,
Time helps with the work put into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because literally the time is the amount of work, like the time of healing is the amount of time of work you put into it. So that's the time. I think that's what they mean. And people just take it as, oh, I just have to wait and time will take care of it.
I'll shove it down and then someday it'll be fine, which that's not how it works.
Well, that's a big thing too. Like anytime I've gone through anything in life that's been impactful, it's like I'd either reach for alcohol or I'd reach for drugs or I'd reach for something to get my mind off of it, something to distract. Yeah. And I see that a lot. I mean, it's so sad when you see those people that are stuck in cycles, man. It's just like, just stuck, just repeating the same bad decisions over and over again, and a lot of them deal with that, like, that kind of victim mindset. It's like, well, you don't know what I went through in my life. It's like, we all go through shit in our life. What are you talking about? Like, even the most, the people that look like they have it all made, they got the Lamborghini in the driveway and the big house and blah, blah, blah. I guarantee you they have some shit that's going on in their life.
100%.
So, yeah, for sure. And it's just like, I don't know. It's sad, especially like childhood traumas. I see that a lot. And in some just, I mean, like, children of sexual abuse, or whatever it may be. I know an individual that told me, their father would just beat the shit out. And I'm not talking about a spanking. I'm talking about like old school, like sitting them down, punching them in the face, doing crazy stuff. And it's just like, how do you heal from that stuff, that like something that severe? Cheating's one thing for sure. That sucks. But, having to deal with a uncle molest you or something like that, like, how do you even move past that? And people don't think that's just taboo, or it doesn't happen as often. It happens more often than you think. And a lot of the times the nasty side of it, it's from people you love. Mm-hmm. That's the horrible thing. Yep. Yeah.
And I use this analogy of like scabs versus scars, where we're all going to have wounds. 100% of us will have wounds. But what are the wounds that are like, you have a scab and you accidentally pick it, or you run into something and all of a sudden you're bleeding again. Right. And if you don't let those heal properly, those will scar, those will cause issues, those will cause pain, all the struggles. But then a scar, you might notice it on occasion, but it's like, it doesn't affect you as much. And so, again, I think just like everything's workoutable, you can heal from just about anything, and a lot of work needs to be put in. Yeah. Exactly what you're saying.
Especially in those cases, because you're talking years and years of, I mean, man, I couldn't even imagine. I've been told, and I have a lot of people that I know that have gone through it, and I've seen the devastation that it does to people's lives. I mean, it ruins, them. It ruins families. It's just, it's sick, but, to those people that go through that, I really hope they find like people like you or however they go about it, and just know that there's a light, and that's hard for an individual that hasn't had to endure that, to tell them that. It's almost like the, you're going to meet someone one day, person that just lost their significant other. It's like, you want to tell them that to help boost their spirits, but you're telling someone that in the darkest time of their life.
And they're going to say, F off, get out of my face.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, what the hell do you know? And it's like, or even like we're talking about children that have gone through that, and speaking to them as adults, and they're like, do you have any idea how long I've dealt with this? I've held this inside, and now it's almost so normal. And that's what freaks me out when, it's like, they've held that inside for so long, they don't know how else to be. Yeah. This is just how they are, and it's sometimes even from people that you wouldn't even expect, because we all think like, oh, it's the crazy people. It's the ones that are out wilding out and doing all. Yeah, it's them, but it's also probably from the people that are the sweetest, most kindest. That the individual that you lost that would give a jacket off of his back to a homeless person. Mm-hmm. Those people, that look like they're okay. Like, oh, Carol, she's good. Like, she's the sweetest person in the world.
Yeah.
And Carol's thinking about hanging herself every minute of the day.
Yeah.
It's so sad. Why is that? Why are some of the most sweetest, kindest, they have the most energy, like they're going through that. It's crazy, isn't it? They're so selfless too. Like, they're just good people, and yet they just they don't even want to exist with themselves.
I mean, I think that's also, mental health is just there's no black and white there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Robin Williams in life, and it's the people who,
Yeah, Robin Williams, perfect example. That's so sad. Yeah.
It's one of those that, like, you can be happy with. There's ways that you can be happy and healed, and there's ways that you can be miserable no matter what your circumstances are. And I think that's what people think. If I work hard enough, I good enough job, if I marry the right person, if I, get the right car, if I, if I have all the money, life is going to be great. But there's, story after story after story of all these rich people who are miserable. Right. And then there's people who, who have these, crappy jobs and, we're just living everyday life and are very content and happy.
Yeah. Or some people live in like third world poverty and they're just smiling on their face, loving and caring. Yeah.
Yes. That was crazy. I was in Ecuador years back, and they have these kids and they literally live in the dump. They live in the trash and they sort trash for a living. And they were the happiest kids I've ever met in my life. And I struggled so much when I came back to the U.S. And there's this kid that's mad because they didn't get the right kind of Barbie doll they wanted. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Do you have any idea what other kids have to go through? Yeah.
I have to have so much compassion. But it's you can be happy in the worst place ever, and you can be miserable in the best place ever.
But then that kid doesn't know, because that's his reality.
Yeah.
To him, he doesn't know. And it's like, it's almost as if, I'm sure you struggle with, like, what is it right for me to tell that kid to compare? Because who knows, you know what I mean? Like, I understand he was complaining about she or whoever it was complaining about not having the doll, but it's like, well, that's their reality. They didn't grow up in the favelas of Rio or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's like, so I get that.
I think it's the both. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I think it's the both. It's the let's go ahead and teach our kids, hey, this is something that, it's let's be grateful. And that sounds really hard that you didn't get the thing that you wanted. Do we want to trade it in, or do we, are we as parent, you have to decide, like, let's go ahead and, let's go get the one you wanted. I'm sorry about that. Or it's, hey, this is the only one that we had. This is what we're going to take, and we're going to be okay with it. Let's be really thankful that we have this. And I think having the both of the empathy of, especially for kids, like, they don't understand, that's just their reality of, like, I'm just sad that I didn't, kids are not inherently bad.
Sure.
They don't think like that. It's, I'm sad, I'm upset. Sounds really hard. I'm so sorry. And how do we teach you to have, like, a thankful heart of, I get that that's really hard. Let's help calm you down. Yeah. Can we see, if we can play with this toy? Are we going to like this toy? Are we going to be okay? It's just such I think an and.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And speaking of Robin Williams, I'm glad you brought that up, because I forgot about that. I remember when that happened, growing up, watching all his movies, knowing him as the funny, almost the dad, like the funny dad, that's kind of how I grew up seeing him. And, just Miss Doubtfire and all these movies that were just, Jumanji, all these movies that were just incredible, that really made an impact on my life. Yeah. To this day, I love Jumanji. I used to watch it every Thanksgiving and Christmas time at my Aunt Terry's house all the time. And it was like a tradition. And just to think of that man was struggling, so hard. And it's like, he had it all, he's a comedian, he's an actor, he had all the money, I'm sure. But yet, just like kind of what Jordan Peterson said, it's like you admire the guy that is driving in the Ferrari down the street and think that he has it all. And little do you know that he wants to wrap that Ferrari around a pole, the next pole that he comes across. It's like, and I get it, I struggle with my own issues, and it's like, how do you go about getting through that? Am I complaining? Is this something serious that I need to actually figure out? Or like, who do I talk to? What do I do? And I think a lot of us actually go through that. You know, I've talked to a lot of people that actually have thought, you know, at some point or another of like just ending it all, you know, stopping, because it's just overwhelming, you know, and you can get, and it's so weird because like, even though through those dark times, there's still pockets of light, you know, I still have good times. I still have times that I'm like, oh yeah, it's a good day, you know, and then it's just like, for a while it's bad, you know, and you kind of go up and down and up and down. And it's hard to navigate that. It's hard to figure out, you know, what to do or, you know, how to go about that, you know?
Yeah.
But
those are good questions.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's just, you know, a lot of people are hurting out there, you know, and I don't know. Do you think sometimes that maybe, like the good part about it is that we talk about it, but do you think sometimes that we think about it a little too much? Do you think that's a thing? Sometimes I struggle with that. Sometimes I struggle because I hear mental health so much, and, you know, and then it's like we see a lot of stuff on the phones and the TV, and everybody always trying to diagnose you with something. And it's almost like, am I thinking too much about this? Like, it's a good thing to be aware, but is it a bad thing to be too aware? You know, it's that balance.
Again, I think it's kind of an and. I use the, you know, and analogy just a lot, but I think it's an and of like, here's the deal. We are like, especially our country, we are in the worst, most mental health deprived, depressed, anxious. Like our generation, this generation is like struggling so much. And, you know, that's part of it. How do we help our kids? Because again, it's the TV, it's the movies, it's the screens that like when we were growing up, we didn't have that struggle as much, you know? And so it's great. You watch a show and then you go outside and play until the lights come on, you know? And then it's like, I think we can look at it too much, and there's almost an overdiagnosis where it's like, even like you were saying, where it's the tips online. Like I love being able to put out those videos and things, but at a certain point it's having those videos, it's like there's a certain level of people are now like getting diagnosed all the time and overdiagnosing themselves. Everybody now is a narcissist. Everybody now has ADHD. Everybody now has autism, which in some ways is good that people are starting to see and educate themselves around this, but it's turning into this again, it's that logic of like, well, you have this and that's why you're doing this. And you have this. 100% of us are narcissists. Yeah. Our brains have to protect ourselves in some ways. So we all technically have some narcissism.
Right.
And true narcissists are not as common as we think they are. Everyone wants to call somebody a narcissist. Everyone wants to say, you know, and I think some of these things can be good. Or that's
your insecurities. You're insecure.
Yeah.
It's like, well, my brain's telling me something.
Yeah. And all of us are. And so it's that normalizing. We try to put it all in a box in our head, this logic of, well, you're this and I do this because of this. And it's this like, hey, I'm actually suffering here and I'm hurt because that person spoke to me like that. And instead of being mad and calling them a narcissist, I need to deal with the wound there. Right. Hey, that didn't feel good. That person called some stuff out in me and I need to figure out if that's true or not. If it is true, what do I do about it? If it's not true, hey, I need to let that go instead of trying to overanalyze it, overprocess it, you know, and I think, yeah, it is so much of that logic where we do kind of overprocess. I think, again, it's good having that education, but too much education, you're putting everything in a box, which we are not meant to fully follow our logic all the time.
Right. Yes, the balance is key then. Yeah, because if you're fully too deep into it, then you're just giving yourself, oh, I'm doing this because of this, you know, and that's okay because I'm this. But then there's also the neglect of, oh, I'll just brush it aside. I'll brush it aside. I'll brush it aside. And then it's like, well, you never dealt with it. Yeah. So, oh, for sure. I mean, it's definitely moderation and just balance is everything in life.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me up to like, so I know you went through all that and that led you to what you're doing now then. So the career that you have now.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a book that I help read lead people through. It's called the Grief Recovery Handbook. If you get it, make sure it has the purple cover because it's the expanded version. It's been around for over 50 years. But I was, going through all of my own pain and struggles, and I opened up the book, and on the first page it says, nobody wakes up and says, ooh, grief, I'll make it my life's work. And I just felt like this gut punch that was like, oh crap, I have to do this with my life now. Like, wait, I don't wake up saying that, but today I woke up and this is what I'm going to do now. Right. And so learned how to heal my own heart and to process my own pain. And that's something I'm continuously doing with these tools that I've acquired. And then now I get to teach all different kinds of people how to heal their own heart. And so, yeah, it's super cool to be able to do that now. I just opened a center for Brave & Co. I just rebranded, but Brave & Co. It's, brave means to be afraid, but do it anyways. I have this tattoo. My name actually means brave, but brave is, it's be afraid, but do it anyways. Okay. And it's kind of like where people can come and whatever issue you have, whatever you're struggling with, let's be brave and face that pain. Let's process it. And let's try and get some healing from that and not let this take over your life.
How long have you been doing this for?
So I've been doing grief work for 8 years, private practice for 4 years, and we just opened Brave & Co. like this week.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah.
Okay. Where are you guys at?
We're in Grandview, Missouri.
Oh, okay, cool.
Right on Main Street.
Oh,
okay.
really?
Cool. Yeah, right on Main Street. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, I work down the street from Main. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll probably see a sign coming out here soon.
Yeah,
but,
I'm not too far from that coffee shop right there.
Oh, Housewife?
Housewife, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You'll see us soon.
That's cool.
So.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Grandview's a cool little place. That little downtown area, they're doing a lot to it and kind of
gentrifying like crazy.
Yeah,
There's some really cool stuff that's happening.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
that's awesome. Cool. So what else? Is it just you, or you have like a team, or? So
for now it's me. I'm, the main one doing it. My husband has helped so much just with the website, he is my brain. I'm the heart, he's the brain. And a lot of things we're just trying to figure out what to do. I've had this, dream. I've known that I've been supposed to do this for like a decade now. But right now I'm potentially wanting to train people, like starting an internship, wanting to train people how to do what I do, and then get even more training from me. And then as I have overflow of clients, kind of give some clients to interns. The hope too is to find some other either wellness or mental health people who will come rent from me as well too, to kind of have a one-stop shop, or at least, collaborate, and a place people know that they can go to find healing. And then just a couple other, things that we're wanting to do there. So I'm wanting to start teaching classes to like parents, teachers, coaches, how to teach their children about grief. Because again, we don't know. We know a lot of things that maybe we shouldn't say, but it's like, what do we actually say? How do we teach our kids to heal as they are growing up, so that they have these tools, so that when they're older, they already have these tools and can already have healed from things and can keep healing from things as they happen. Yeah. It's like my daughter, my youngest, she's going to be 7 this year, but she has had a hard time with our dogs passing last year. And I mean, all the time brings it up and cries about it. And it's like, my oldest isn't really, she kind of reminds me a little more of myself, like a little more like conservative with her emotions and stuff. And but yeah, I mean, it's just like, you're right. 'Cause I'm at a loss sometimes. I hey baby, it's okay. Like, it's, I understand, like, Django loved you and he's in a better place, and like you do all these things. And it's like, I don't know. And then I kind of wonder, should I have taken her there when we did that? Because we were all there as a family. I thought that would be good. But now I'm like, was that a bad thing? Like, you just never know. And then, or even that's like sometimes, there was a period where she was bringing it up so much. And it's like, okay, babe, I know, it's like, you're kind of like, it's hard to navigate, it definitely is with kids. Do you want a couple thoughts on how to maybe navigate that? For sure, yeah. Of course, there's a lot more to it, but I think some things too is even asking the question of like, what would you say to Django? Like, if he were here, what would you say to him? Is there anything that you want to, which might sound silly, but is there anything you want to apologize to him for? Are you sorry that he maybe didn't get to live as long as we wanted him to? Are you sorry that He's not here.
Mhm.
Anything, any pain that you need to let go of. Remember that one time that he ran over you and he hurt you?
Oh, and you got mad
and you
or
got mad at
something.
him?
Yeah.
Can you forgive him? And can you forgive yourself for being mad at him? And so, working through basically any emotional pain that comes up, what would you want to say to him? And then anything that you're thankful for.
Right.
So, Django, thank you so much for the way that you loved our family. I loved the way that you played with the toys with me. I loved the way that you would snuggle me. Django, when you hurt me or made me mad, I didn't like it. I forgive you. It sounds silly, but those three things of like anything you want to apologize for, anything you want to forgive, which means to let go of that pain, and then anything you're thankful for, anything you want to tell Django.
It's almost like a verbal journal, almost.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, because I need to get back on that because I used to journal a lot, and it was very therapeutic because you're just kind of putting your thoughts and emotions on paper and kind of like you can reflect back to it at some point or just kind of let it out, and you almost feel better afterwards. Like, okay, put that aside. But then you got to tell yourself, let's go live our day now. Like let's not keep rewinding because that can be hard. Just rewind over and over in your head.
Yeah.
Or it makes you almost like you feel like you're going insane.
Yes. And that's why I tell people actually to be careful with journaling. I'm super pro journaling, and make sure that you are going somewhere with it, because otherwise you're just rehashing, re-traumatizing, you're reliving that thing and your brain doesn't know the difference. It's just replaying that scene over and over again. So again, I'm choosing to let go of this pain. So, when this thing happened, I felt hurt, sad, mad. I am choosing to let go of this pain so that I can be free. Or the way I feel is, even just some cognitive behavioral therapy, like the way I feel is blank and the truth is blank. And so it's like, how do I... It's not minimizing saying, because sometimes it's, oh, well, this is the truth. This is the truth. Or no, this is how I feel and it's okay. It's like sometimes you need both. Okay, the way I feel is really disappointed that this thing happened at work. The truth is it was painful that happened, and I know they handled it the best that they could. So it's like having a bit of both. Yeah,
I noticed that too when I was journaling. I noticed it was very negative every single day.
Yeah.
And I was almost to the point where I'm like, I need to write something positive in here. Like, what am I doing? And it was like almost repetitive when I look back. And it's like, are we, like you said, are we going anywhere with this? No, we're not. Even though it was supposed to be helping and it felt good. Yeah. It's almost like, okay, well, now I got to look at, is there change happening? Because if there's not change and I'm just doing this for temporary relief, what's the point of this?
Yeah. Well, and even like in anger management, for example, a lot of times people are like, oh, I just need to vent and just scream it out and get angry. And there are times and places for that. Absolutely getting it out. But if you keep escalating and escalating and escalating, they've done so many studies that does not help you calm down. You can get angry to a point, get it out, and then calm back down. Because if you keep getting more and more angry, it's, this guy cut me off and then I'm out in the car and then all of a sudden I have a gun and all of a sudden it's like it way escalates and you're like, what the heck just happened here? And it's when you start to get angry, paying attention, hey, is this something I need to like process and get out? Or, hey, I need to calm back down, get out. It's with that journaling, like get out the anger. Okay, I'm letting this go. I'm not going to hold on to this thing because it's hurting me. I am not letting it take up space in my brain anymore. I have to, let's look at some of the positive here. And that's not, again, you don't want to do one or the other. Focusing on all the negative is not great. Focusing on all the positive can hurt you too. I wish I wore a different shirt because I have this tattoo on my arm and there's flowers up here and then there's weeds down here and then there's an and sign. And so they're like, the whole point, it's like there's beauty in the flowers and the weeds. And so sometimes we feel like, oh, we need just the flowers and only look at the flowers because they're good and they're pretty and they're great. Like, let's kill those weeds. Right. But like, thing about weeds is like, if we didn't know they were a weed, one, they would be pretty. Two, when you're a kid, when you like blow the dandelions, like how fun is that? Yeah. And like Great Depression, whenever, like in the Great Depression, people would eat dandelion salads. I was just going to say that. The nutritional factor to them. Yeah, the nutritional factor where it's like, oh, let's get rid of those weeds. And it's like, those actually have some really good medicinal properties. Yeah. Now, we can't keep the weeds because they will run over your yard and they will choke everything out.
Right, right.
And flowers, only looking at the flowers. Also, if you're looking at your garden, you ignore all the weeds. Again, the weeds are going to come out and they're going to choke everything out.
Right.
And so it's being able to look at both and have that and of, okay, there's a lot of beauty here. I need to look at the positives. I'm so thankful that I do have a job and that pays the bills, and I'm thankful I can provide for my family. And when my boss did that, I wanted to punch him in the face, and I'm really upset about it, and I'm really frustrated, and I don't want to hold this in anymore, and I'm going to process it so that I can be free of this, and I'm not holding it on to tomorrow.
Yeah. Have you ever read the book 4 Agreements?
I've heard of it, but I have not read it.
It's really good. I have it up there. I'll let you look at it before you leave.
Yeah.
But there was one part in there that I remember. It was like, why would you choose to hold, and this is not a quote at all, but it basically said, like, why would you choose to hold on to something that's basically only poisoning you?
Yep.
It's not poisoning anybody else.
Yep.
And like I said, everything I'm saying today is definitely harder said or easier said than done. But they're right. Like, all this anger, and this is coming from, I've dealt with anger issues my whole life, and still am trying to better myself. And you have to you have to figure out something, because they're right. Like, you're slowly poisoning yourself. You know, a lot of these illnesses and cancers and stuff like that, like, you know, we like to think that, you know, they're coming from something else, but sometimes it's coming from your own self. Like, stress is not good. I've seen people in the industry I work in have heart attacks and faint from the stress that they're put under from just trying to be good at their job and or hold a job, you know, like the stressors they put on some people. And it's just like, well, you know, if they can't take it, they can get out of here. But I mean, is that good for people? It's not, you know, or like you said, even the life we live nowadays, we go on everything. And it's like, is this good for us? It's not. You know, we're taking definitely a hit to our health.
Yeah. Even when I mentioned that, that, you know, that phrase, that common phrase that we hear all the time is pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Yeah. Do you know where that comes from? Mm-mm. So it's actually a military term, and we have twisted it and we have smashed it and we have just ruined it, because it is, the quote is, you cannot pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Yeah. Because how ridiculous does that sound? It's a military term where, you know, the guys, they go run and they jump over like the wall. You don't do that by yourself. You have to use your teammates. So you can't pull yourself up this wall by your bootstraps. That's ridiculous. You have to use your teammate. You have to use your friend. You have to use somebody else, because we cannot do it alone.
I guess I've never thought about, that doesn't make any sense. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Yeah. Yeah, what does that even mean? Because you pull your bootstraps like you're not. Yeah, it doesn't make any. It doesn't make. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, what the fuck? Why has everyone been telling me that shit? Yeah, because I used to say that too, and then years ago I thought about it, and actually Rogan really helped me think about that. He goes, not everybody's race, they don't start at the same starting line, you know. So you can't say that for everybody, because who knows, like. Your life may not have been that hard, or you may have this much struggles, but this person might have this much, like that's making it a little harder for them. But I think people get confused, because when we discuss these things, it's hard for people to be objective on it, you know, and not put some towards emotion. Well, you know, I had a hard life too, and I'm fine, and I got out of it. And it's like, I get that. And I don't want this person to stay in this victim mentality where they're stuck at all either. Yeah. But let's be real here. There are differences here. Yeah. So we have to be able to approach these things differently. And, you know, Well, and comparison is the thief of joy. So I have clients who have been through so much and are like, I can't compare because some people have it way worse. And I'm like, you just told me your husband just smacked you in the face. You're allowed to look at your pain, you know. And then I have some people who, I have it so much worse than you. And it's like, yeah, but the way they're experiencing it is so different than you. So we need to give them space too. And so, there may be hey, we're holding on to this thing that we need to process and let go of. And it's, hey, we can't let this control your life. And you can't minimize my pain so that yours looks bigger. Yeah. Man, when all else fails, just use dark humor to get over it. That's what I do. When I first started with this, I was not a dark humor person at all. Like when I was going through my losses, I hated some of the jokes. Oh, really? And then I became like a specialist. And then
within like a couple of weeks, I was like, I got to get really cool about a whole bunch of stuff really fast or I will not survive here. Yeah. And now I love it. Like I've done a lot of work to get there and I have really dark humor with a lot of clients and I love it now.
Sometimes laughter, I think, is like, it can be overlooked. I mean, it's just, it kind of gives you that relief and that just, oh yeah, what am I, it's just, let's laugh about that. Cause it is kind of like me, like I hope when I die, I don't want people to be like, I understand that people are going to be upset or whatever, but I hope they just laugh and like just make jokes and like.
I'm going to hire the Grim Reaper to just stand in the corner.
Stand in the corner?
Yep. She's like, I've been waiting for her.
Like it just like that, like stuff like that. It just, I don't know. It just kind of relieves tension. Yeah. You know what I mean? And in sometimes really fucked up scenarios, but it's like, what else are you supposed to do? It's like, we've already boohooed about it enough. Like it's almost like you take control of it and you make fun of it. Yeah. I feel like,
you make it lighter and that's it. Like for some people that's great and some people it's awful, but it can be really just like our bodies are, like our bodies have immense joy. Mm-hmm. There's an overwhelm of joy. That's what, when people are like, oh, crying is bad. Usually when people start crying, what's the first thing they say? Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. Right. And it's like, no. Your body has overwhelm of sadness and that's tears. And that's same with like happiness where that's why like grief, that's why I have that tattoo. It's both are so important to have and be able to look at both. And so sometimes like that humor, people are like, oh, it's so inappropriate. Like, I don't know if you've heard of or seen, randomly people will be at a funeral and then all of a sudden somebody starts laughing maniacally and you're like, what just happened? Yeah. And your body cannot hold on to this sadness all of the time or it will explode.
Yeah.
And that's where laughter comes in. And sometimes it's, just good fun, but sometimes it can be like, are you okay? Do we need to get you help?
Yeah, with my friends, I'm sure it's going to be a comedy fest. So, yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. That's good. If they were to see our group chat, I'm sure we'd be in jail right now, dude. We go hardcore, man.
Read the receipts. I want to know. Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
But yeah, no, hey, I appreciate you coming on. I think you've really helped out a lot of people that are watching this. I know you've helped me, be able to understand some things even about myself, just this conversation we've had. So I really hope people come and really give you a chance to help them, especially now that you have your new location. That's awesome. So is there anything else that you wanted to kind of discuss or throw out there that you have coming up or?
No, yeah. Just wanted to say thank you so much for trusting me with, like I always tell my clients, like, thank you for trusting me with your heart. And I know you're not, all out spilling all your guts, but I appreciate the parts of your life that you are willing to share with me and allow me to speak into and for trusting me with the people who you have built trust with that they're now going to listen to me. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know that trust me. I know there's people out there that are going to watch that are really, it's really going to help them, but I can't reiterate this enough. It's like you can't just listen to this and then go on. Like you gotta go either get help from you or find things that help you. Like you can't just sit there and hope that it changes. It's not.
I had a potential client. We had been talking and she was talking about like wanting to, work through some mental health stuff. And she's like, well, I'm using ChatGPT as my therapist right now. And I was like, well, I love ChatGPT. Sorry, the people who love not the economy. What is it? I know it's not great for the environment, but
oh, it's not.
Apparently it like uses a lot of water. And I'm not one of those huge corporations that's like,
those are the same people.
I use it for emergencies and ChatGPT cannot be your therapist.
Those are the same people drinking almond milk and talking about environment or riding in private jets and talking about environment. So yeah, I don't know. I like ChatGPT and Gronk, so they help out. But like you said, there's a difference. You know what I mean? It's just like kind of what I do with martial arts. It's like, yeah, you can train in your basement for sure and watch videos, but it's a totally different thing when you have a coach. Yeah. It's totally different. Same with working out. We're working out. Yeah, it's great. I never want someone to stop not going to work out because they don't have a private trainer, but it's different. I have seen the results from a person who works out by themselves going off of YouTube videos and they can look great. But I've seen people that work out with private trainers, and damn, like they completely have a transformation.
Absolutely.
And, you know, do what you can, do it, you know, do what you can afford. You know, I mean, I'm sure even you'd like to be able to help people as well. But in the end, it doesn't matter if it's you or if it's somebody else or if it's whatever, like you just want them to find help, you know?
Yeah.
And I hope that they see what you can offer and trust you and come to you first. But, you know, I think overall, we just want human beings in general in our community and in the world to just to heal and be able to get better.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like I said, I appreciate you for coming on. So thank you
so much for having me.